Hello, my name is Inge Patsch and welcome to the series Understanding Our Monetary System. Today I want to talk with you how interest rates are a redistribution mechanism. So before we actually get started on the actual function of mechanism, it's important that you understand how does a company, how do enterprises actually derive the cost which they have. And therefore you have to understand that they do some process called cost calculation, in which they would include all the direct costs they would have, so things which would directly be able to be referred to the product, but also the proportion of all the indirect costs. So let's say you pay rent for a shop you're in, or you have built a building which should last for 20 years, and all the production costs involved in this, including, of course, also interest rates. So let's say for whichever investment you had to pick up a loan of 100,000 euro and you have to pay interest rate of a total of, let's say, 20,000 euro, then this 20,000 euro would also be part of the cost calculation. And this 20,000 euro is also what we refer to as the cost of capital. And we can see it very nicely in this graphic here made by Professor Creutz, which is, you don't have to really look into the text. The basic idea is you produce in the lowest level, you produce an ore, you mine an ore, steel ore, let's say. Then in the next level, you have the steel production. Next level, you have the retailer for the steel. Then you have the factory, which is producing the steel into a knife. Then you have the retailer for knives. And then finally, you have the retailer where you go and you actually buy yourself a new chopping knife for your kitchen. And in all these production stages, every of these entrepreneurs, every of the companies would make a cost calculation, and it would say, how do I actually derive the price? So on the left-hand side, we see the blue one is the cost of capital. The right-hand side of this inverted pyramid would be the cost of labor. And the cost of it works in the way that you say, okay, you have this, let's say the mine would buy a machine for going down into the mine. And then again, the capital cost for this machine, as I explained before, let's say the 20,000 euro, because the machine cost 100,000 euro, would be split up on all the ore which can be mined with this machine in its lifetime. So there is a certain amount going on every kilogram of ore, as well as there is a certain amount of the total labor cost required for mining 1 kilogram of ore. And then this price would be given to the steel producer who has to buy the ore. So the middle two bars in the second layer is like the product, the cost, the direct cost they have for the ore which they get. And then also they add their cost of capital and they add their cost of labor, of course, in order to cover what is their cost. And on it goes until up, and we have in the last stage, we have the Lagerhaus or the Sparmarket or any supermarket. You go in and you buy a steel knife, and also they buy the knife for what is the middle two bars, and the left and the right bar in there is their cost of capital for, let's say, renting out the building they're in, or the cost of interest rate they have to pay off for the loan they took up for building their own building, and on the right side actually the cost of labor involved. So you see how the different labor costs, the different cost of capital and the different labor costs are included. And Professor Creutz sat down and he looked at this and asked the question, okay, how much does this end up being now? And in rent, he said that interest rate is actually making up 77% of all the rent payment you have to make. So this doesn't only refer to the rent you have to make when you live in an apartment which is owned by someone else, but this apparently also refers, let's say, to the rent which a shop owner pays, a small shop owner pays, who doesn't own his own house and shop, but who is renting out a shop from somewhere else. And when he pays 70%, so when he pays this rent, apparently you also pay the rent when you buy products there. Similarly, he also calculated it, for example, for water. So he figured out the percentage for water is a tiny little bit less. It's only like 38%. Much of it is depreciation for the production of the water system. So he talked about water production as it would be like in Germany or Austria, with municipalities providing a water service through cooperatives. So also in a common good oriented body like this, the basic idea would apply, because also they have to take up loans in order to produce what they do. So his overall estimation is that on average on 30% of on what we pay is interest. So it doesn't matter what exactly you consume, so it might maybe fluctuate a bit, but on average we can say whatever we consume, 30% of it is going as an interest payment in the system to the capital owners. So let's look at this now. What does this mean for individuals in our society? And thanks for moneta.org for these beautiful drawings, which are so nice to explain this. So we have split up here our society by income segments. So we have made 10 income segments from the lowest earners on the left-hand side to the highest earners on the right-hand side. And the lowest earner, and for the sake of simplification, let's say he or she earns 1,000 euro in a month. So we can assume that he doesn't do any savings because there might simply not be anything left over, so he might consume all the 1,000 euro. So there is zero income from savings, from interest rate, but as we said, 30% on average what he is consuming is interest. So we can say that he has to pay, she has to pay 300 euro approximately as interest payments every month. So let's say the second person is 1,200 euro. So maybe he or she is able to save 50 euro in a month. So this would make a tiny little bit of income. But then she would probably consume the rest. So we can say approximately 400 euro would be interest payment she is paying through difference. And on the story goes, with everyone who earns a bit more, they would consume more of person, so their income would increase, so they would consume a bit more. They also would be able to save something, but as we all know, the interest rates at the moment, they don't make us rich at all, and they were never intended to make us rich neither. So on it goes until like the eighth, including the eighth group, which they have meanwhile coming up some interest and dividend payments from the investment they have made, but also their interest payment is actually made higher because they consume more from their flights when they fly on holiday whatsoever, is also having a lot of interest payments. So it's only actually the ninth group which is having like, where this is kind of equalized, where you say you pay as much interest as you actually earn from the investments and the savings you have made. And then it's the last group, so it's the top 10 capital income earners who actually have more interest income than they would have as a payment because they simply cannot consume that much. So if we draw the same graphic, but simply we take the net difference of what is interest earnings minus interest payments, we see that the first 8 groups are actually having this net loss, while the last group is having a net profit. And this is, in another visualized form, how through the purchase of different goods and products, actually there is a massive redistribution from money from the bottom to the top, which is not matched at all with, let's say, the redistribution done by a welfare state. This would also not change, for example, if we do introduce a universal basic income, something I'm basically a big fan of. But even with a universal basic income introduced, without that we change this mechanism, this money will simply be going very fast up in the circle and again end up in the hand of the top 10%. I would love to hear your thoughts and your comments on this works. Many theorists have been working on this and have not found the flaw, so I'm curious to learn what do you feel about it. If you have enjoyed my video, please subscribe my channel or check out my other works on one-on-review, and thanks for watching.